Good morning, my name is Jesse Michael.
And I'm Patrick Conant. We're really excited to be here today.
We're absolutely thrilled to be your 2018 Community Fellows. And you might be wondering, why are two white men standing here talking about the state of Black Asheville? To answer that, we want to start by providing a little bit of project history and tell you how we came to partner with the project creator, Dr. Dwight Mullen.
I had the privilege of taking a class with Dr. Dwight Mullen 10 years ago, and there I first learned about the State of Black Asheville project. Dr. Mullen first came to Asheville in the 80s, actually as part of an effort to desegregate the faculty of UNC Asheville. He created the State of Black Asheville as an undergraduate research project to use student research to analyze disparities in outcomes between Black and white residents. Earlier this year, I learned that Dr. Mullen was retiring from the university and he was concerned about the future of the state of Black Asheville. He asked us to help transform what had started in an academic setting and transform it into a community resource that could have a sustainable future. A few months later, we learned about the Code for America Community Fellowship, and we saw this as an opportunity to bring government to the table in a more collaborative manner. While Dr. Mullen couldn't join us on the stage today, we felt that the project's history and goals could only be conveyed in his own words, so we created a video. So without any further delay, here's Dr. Dwight Mullen.
Dr. Dwight Mullen. I'm a professor, retired, of political science and a joint appointment in Africana Studies. And we started the State of Black Asheville as an undergraduate research project in the fall of 2006. It was right on the heels of Hurricane Katrina. And I had people who had been evacuated in class, and it led to the conversation of what would happen if Hurricane Katrina hit Asheville. Who would be in the water, who would be living at the Civic Center, and why. And we started looking at education and healthcare, and eventually expanded to criminal justice and housing, and eventually economic development. Community access to the data, it seems as though it's contradictory. Who cares about the hard numbers? It's so quantitative. It has all these graphs and charts. Who would be attracted to that? And actually what we were surprised to find is that in each of these public policy areas, ranging from housing to criminal justice to education, data existed, but wasn't necessarily at the core of policy. And so you have policymakers making policies in these areas that were not necessarily in response to the real data. And so when the students in their undergraduate research projects started looking hard at what was going on as outcomes from these areas, they were very surprised that there were disparities by race and by gender. I wasn't surprised by that, but what I was surprised at was the degree of the disparities and how those disparities were rarely accountable. Folk were held accountable for it. Budgets were not responsive to it. And so the public accesses data can change all that. Everything from nonprofit activity to legislative and council chamber and county commission policies. I started out looking at the long game. I honestly wanted to know where we are going with this. It's one thing to address the schools. It's another thing to have a comprehensive whole look at what's happening with our community. And historically, you see, this is the South, and the South has a long memory. Folk tell stories, and families are involved. And so I started thinking about connecting this, and it became really obvious once I did, with the era of Jim Crow segregation. And so in the South, we have real hardcore beginnings of it with lynchings at the turn of the century. And Buncombe County is included with that. And then you look at this forced violent segregation, this separation of the races in terms of where it was. And we find it in the schools, healthcare, housing, criminal justice, all these areas that resonate for decades and decades. And so what I'm hoping overall with the picture for Asheville and Buncombe County is to change that legacy, to begin addressing and looking at what equality really means, not just for equality of rights, but to have some type of justifiably equity when it comes to outcomes of public policies. We've agreed as a community to do things together. We're going to educate our children. We're going to live together. When we get sick, we're going to get treated. I mean, all those areas we've decided to do together. We should not tolerate disparities in the outcomes of those areas. We started doing this over 10 years ago, and for most of that time, we're pretty ignored. Folk recognized that there were disparities, and there was a shudder whenever the students presented their papers on an annual basis on a campus. The undergraduate research symposium, students presented it, people were shocked, standing room only, that kind of thing, but very little came out of it. And part of it was that it was limited to the campus. The city and county were not involved, and there was very little private sector recognition of what was going on. What the fellowship has done is created a third party that is responsive to the data in terms of we can't just let this sit here and do nothing. And because of that, it's made it more legitimate for the City Council, Asheville City Council, and for Buncombe County Commissioners to look at it as areas of major concern. And so individuals on each of those bodies have since had not just the data as justification, but now they have the fellowship to support that this third party also thinks it's important. And so it's giving it momentum.
Here, he's actually, he just had a building named after him at UNC Asheville. So round of applause for Dr. Mullen. He's been an incredible community partner.
So to understand the racial disparities that we see in outcomes today, it's important to understand some historical context. The Black community in Asheville had a number of nationally recognized institutions, including schools, neighborhoods, business districts, and other programs.
And unfortunately, like many cities, Asheville did play a direct role in programs that did harm the Black community. So federal programs that created redlining, the largest urban renewal program in the Southeast that impacted over half of the African American community, and interstates were built that disproportionately impacted Asheville's Black neighborhoods and business districts, which unfortunately is still happening today.
So for another piece of context, it's important to understand the Asheville we see today. As you can tell, our city is growing very, very rapidly. But you can see a lot of the growth in population is white residents. And in fact, even more concerning, our Black population for the first time is declining. What is going on here? Why is our city growing this way?
So something is obviously wrong. Asheville considers itself to be a progressive, diverse city. But these numbers do contrast with our apparent values. It's no secret that opportunities and outcomes in Asheville do remain disparate between Black and white residents. And people are talking about it, well, what are we really doing about it? We know that projects like the State of Black Asheville can make a huge impact on policy outcomes. So the task for the fellowship is to really amplify the effects of Dr. Mullen's existing work.
So what is the fellowship contributing? Really, as Jessica said, our core goal is to fulfill Dr. Mullen's vision in a new setting. This project started in an academic setting, and as Dr. Mullen said, it created an impact. But we think that the project can have an even bigger impact if we create it as a community resource that brings government partners and community groups together. We're using this opportunity to build a sustainable process to update our existing resources, to create new opportunities for community members to conduct research, and use technology and open data to analyze equity in our city in new ways.
So, how are we doing this work? To start, we're asking the community to get involved in the research process. And right now, we need a lot of help because there are 1,500 pages of student research that are, for the first time, available to the public. We're turning the content from these pages into dynamic visualizations and releasing them to the community. And in doing so, we also create a pipeline for visualizing content from other documents in the future. And if you do want to help us index these documents, please visit stateofblackasheville.com/how-to-index. There's step-by-step instructions, and you can help us get these pages released to the public in the form of dynamic visualizations. So, and I do want to point out that Code for America's own Hashim was nice enough to be one of our beta testers for this functionality. So, thank you, Hashim. That you're a huge help to us.
So I'm a data geek, and as much as I love indexing student papers, I knew that there was something we could do to use the amazing efforts that the city of Asheville is taking around open data to make the project even more successful. Our goal is really to create a living resource, not just a snapshot of information, which will allow us not only to understand where we are today, but to provide the instrumentation that we need to measure the impact of policy outcomes as our city takes efforts to improve equity in our city.
So to do this, we want to bring data visualizations to life. And we start here, and this is a fact or a figure. But we can make this better. So here you have a basic visualization, and it's typically in the form of a static graph or chart. Right now, these are typically screenshot or exported from a student paper. We do identify the source so the reader can explore the data further. And here you can see this is really what we want. This is a fully interactive visualization. Some of our visualizations, having trouble with that word. Some of our visualizations do come from Google Sheets and can be manually updated by anyone with access, so any member of the community can take ownership of a visualization and update it over time. Even better, we do have city-powered visualizations that are powered from city data. Thanks to Patrick's incredible work, these visualizations actually stay up to date over time with no manual labor.
So we feel, and Dr. Mullen agrees, that the State of Black Asheville is becoming a community resource. And that extends all the way to the tech itself. I just want to highlight that all of the work we're doing, whether it's code, research, reports, all of our materials are freely licensed and available for the community to build upon. Or if you're not from Asheville, you could take a look and consider deploying a similar project in your own city.
So what's next? Data is good, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Our community partners, Dr. Mullen and Ashley Cooper, are diving into each of our focus areas such as education, healthcare, and justice in order to provide context and additional resources like identifying factors of resilience and self-sufficiency and areas for further research. So we're also conducting interactive data workshops to train our fellow community members on how to access and use public data, which is critical to advocacy efforts and super important. We'll be introducing features to empower community members, journalists, and others to create their own visualizations and contribute new content. They'll also be able to share and embed State of Black Asheville's visualizations on their own projects, so they'll be able to take the data with them and use it for their own advocacy efforts. And we'll be building out a cultural archive that incorporates digitized media such as images and audio recordings to make these important historical assets available to the public. And as you can see here, these are from the Isaiah Rice photograph collection, and this is just one of the many repositories we have in Asheville. And these are photos, oral histories, audio recordings, and more that will, for the first time really have a home and be available to the public on the State of Black Asheville.
So this project, if you can't tell, is a very big job, and it's going to take everyone's help. As our communities start the process of trying to tackle our most challenging issues, it's going to take collaboration between government partners, between community groups, sometimes with a fellowship to help get the work started. So our hope is that the community fellowship and the State of Black Asheville project can serve as a model for how this type of collaboration can work.
So you can check out a preview of the State of Black Asheville at stateofblackasheville.com. We're a little over halfway through our fellowship, and there's still a lot of work to be done. We're really looking forward to completing this and bringing this incredibly essential resource to the community. So a huge thanks to Code for America, Code for Asheville, and our community and government partners for making this possible. Ashley Cooper, Kimberly Archie, Eric Jackson right over there, and Dr. Mullen, thank you. And also a really special thanks to our teammates, Lauren Shofady and Holden Mask in the back, for helping us make this fellowship a success. Those are our staff members, and they go absolutely above and beyond the call of duty, and we absolutely love them. So,
Yeah,
thank you.